One of my most frequent questions I get on my YouTube videos is how do I film them? How do I get these epic third-person shots? Well, the short answer is replay mod. The long answer is, well, this video. One of my favorite comments I get on my videos is when people tell me it's like they're watching a film or a movie. And though it is missing a lot of the production value, it is kinda similar. At least in the sense of having multiple different camera angles all filming the same thing. So we'll do a little scene here and I can show you how I go about getting each of my clips. Now, usually I'd film this in scenes, so this wouldn't just be one whole video, it would be made up of multiple of what I'm going to do right now. But obviously the first thing we need to do is start our replay mod recording. So as you can see, that's going in the background, filming all around us from a third person perspective. We'll look more into that in just a minute. But what I do is I will make a marker, and at the same time I do that, I will have started the recording, but obviously we're already going right now. So let's do an example scene of what I would possibly say or do in one of my worlds. So just gotta compose myself, and action. Oh wow, can't believe after fighting 5 withers, the ender dragon, riding on the back of him, and then finding 17 elytras, I didn't take a single heart of damage and my hardcore world is still absolutely fine. Wow, I am so good at this game. You know, something like that. And now is where we can go into replay mod, so we just save and quit the title and that will start saving in the background. Depending on how long the clip is, will depend on how long it takes to save, obviously, but then we just go to replay viewer and hop into third person. So this is replay mod. Let me just give that a pause here so we don't get ahead of schedule. I'll give a very quick rundown on what replay mod is in case you don't know. Essentially, it's a third person camera allowing you to get shots of your player without, being in first person. So this is good for like time lapsing. That's probably the main use, but I like to use it to get all of my different camera angles. Now, this isn't going to be a deep dive into replay mod. I'll keep it as simple as I can so you at least understand the premise of it. But up the top here, we have the event timeline. So this is what we've just recorded. You can see we were going for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Not just the one 20-second clip that we did. That starts here on this marker, but this is the entire duration I was in the world with replay mod running. And then this line down the bottom is what you need to focus on when you're actually getting whatever shots you want to get. Now, the first thing I do, and I think it's incredibly important and kind of crucial if you want your videos to look like a cinematic production. Obviously, this isn't every single shot is going to be like this, but more often than not, you're going to want to have your FOV set pretty low. And that is just so it makes it seem a little bit more realistic. This is a similar kind of look that you would have in real life. You don't really see the world like this. Obviously you have your peripheral vision, but this is kind of blurred out, so it just seems a little bit more realistic. It's nicer on the eye. It makes it, easier to see what the subject of the shot that you're trying to get actually is, which in this case is me or the house or just this entire thing. You can see the difference if I'm in 30 FOV versus normal. There's too much going on. You want it kind of zoomed in on what you're looking at. So once you picked your FOV, I, on average, would say I go with 40 more often than not. Sometimes 30 is just that little bit too zoomed in. What we will do is go to my marker. So this is the one that I was actually recording on. Sometimes I have others. It's not important. Just get to the marker that you set when you started the recording. Then the very first thing I'll do is on 0 seconds on this second bar, is add a time keyframe, just like that right at the start. And then you want to make sure that synchronized timeline is active. So you just make sure that's glowing yellow. And then what you want to do is just unpause the replay and set it going. So obviously this is when I'm talking about killing all of those withers and whatever nonsense I was blabbering on about. And we just let it go until I know that the recording is done, which is when I enter the house. So we're not worrying about what shot we're going to get just yet. We're purely focusing on the time aspect of it. So around about there, I like to give myself a little bit of wiggle room just in case I get it wrong or miss the ending. We add another time keyframe, sorry. So that is perfectly synced up with our first person recording that we did earlier. So now we've got the length of the recording that we want. We're just going to zoom in on that to make it a little bit easier to see and actually pinpoint the exact markers that we want. So this is where it maybe comes down to having a little bit of experience. I kind of know at what point in this timeline that I'm at in person. So I know when I'm about halfway, I've made it to the door. I'm going to be over here. But at the start, I was around about here. So let's say this is going to be our first shot. Actually, no, that's a bad shot. First shot is going to be with the house in the mountain. And I know I'm roughly about here when I start walking. I usually like to get it so I'm off the screen and I kind of walk onto the screen. But just to make it simple, we'll go with this. Nicely framed up, everything is in the shot. So what I'll do is come back to the 0-second marker right here, making sure whatever you do, you don't get rid of the time keyframes whilst you're doing all this. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of start fresh if you want to make it as simple as possible. Just try not to press this button until you're done. So we'll add a position keyframe, and this is the position of the camera. So if I say add another one at the end over here, like that, throughout the process of that whole 20 seconds while we're walking into the house, the camera is going to be going like this. Obviously, we're going to have multiple shots. That's kind of the point of this, but that is going to be shot number 1. So the first 5 seconds will maybe sort of be from here until there, and then we're going to be moving on to the next one. We're going to be cutting to the next shot, which let's move on to that. So we've got our first shot that we want to have. So we just go to render camera path and then we add it to queue. You can render it as you go, but I just like to chuck it in the queue and then render them all at once. Obviously, bear in mind when you have a bunch of clips you want to render all at once, make sure you don't change the FOV, or if you do, accommodate for that. But obviously you want them all to be the same. So we got the first shot. I want the second shot to be kind of me crossing across this path somewhere. We'll still get it so that I'm in the doorway when I'm done with it, but what we'll do for the second clip is just get rid of the position keyframes. Again, making sure you don't get rid of the time ones, very important. And we'll maybe have the path coming from over here to over here. So we're just going to the exact same markers where we have the time ones, but essentially just picking out which shots we want in which order. So that right there is our second shot. Then we can come over here, maybe a little bit closer to the watermill, and we'll have, let's say this time we're going to have a static shot. So it's just going to be a single position, don't move the camera, press another one, there you go. Nothing changes, it's just a completely still shot of me by the door. We can add that one, and then for the fourth one, and to get a bit of a long shot, we'll zoom on out whilst I'm going through the door, and we'll have just a gradual zooming out. So we'll get rid of the positions. First one will be there, second one will be there, and we just go back, and there we go. Something else that's probably worth mentioning is you can actually see the path that the camera is going to take here. So this is the first one, this is the second one, and if you go to, let's say, just halfway through the clip right here, you can see this is where the camera is going to be going, this little player head. Just might be helpful. I don't use that sort of stuff that much, but it might make it a bit easier for you guys to understand. But there we go, we add the final clip to our queue, and very simply we just render all, and that will get them all into a folder. Now we jump into the video editor. So I use Vegas Pro, but the bonus with this is it doesn't really matter which video editing software you use, as long as you can add in multiple kind of videos on top of each other and layer them, because that's sort of how this works. So we'll get to our first person perspective in there to begin with, and I think it was here I started yapping, pretty sure. So there we go, we'll just get rid of this one for now, and then I think this is roughly where it ended, about here. So this is our first person's perspective, which we will use a little bit. I like to jump back and forth between first person and third person. Now, something I like to do when I get these clips is have some sort of aspect in the clip that can be used as a clapperboard. So you know in films and TV when they have the big thing that they clap in front of the thing to mark the beginning of a scene, usually see in like documentaries or something like that. That's basically done so they can sync up the audio with the video. And a door, for example, is the perfect thing that we can use that for. Not necessarily for audio and video, but for first person and third person. So we can see that this frame right here is when the door opens. So if we go ahead and drag our first third person into here, and then we'll just do that so we can make sure we sync it up correctly here. We'll zoom in, and then we'll gradually, probably should have picked a non-long shot for this, but I can see just about, I think it's, man, I really should have. Okay, there we go. The door's shut, and now it's open. So now this is perfectly synced up. We can bring this back here, and we'll just leave the tail on for the end of it, because that means we can get 3 more sections to put in the other clips, and then we'll just match them up so that they go and end at the same point. So there's the second one, there's the third one, and then we'll get the fourth one in there too. And there we go. They are all perfectly synced up. We'll just drag them back to the start so they all start at the same point as well. And now is essentially where you pick what shot you want to cut to where and when. So obviously we want the third person perspective of this one right here. So I can just click solo and it'll show this one that I'm currently highlighted. Without listening to what I'm saying, I'm just going to kind of guess that that right there is a good point to cut. So I'll make a split there, and then I'll go up to the second clip, and at the same point, make another split. I know I'm not going to need this anymore, and I'm not going to need this anymore. Then we'll do the same to the second clip, so we solo that one again, and here is where I get to the door, so maybe we'll just cut it right there-ish. I like to sync it up kind of with the audio, so when I finish a sentence, I would then cut to another clip, but without listening, it doesn't really matter. The audio isn't important in this specific video. But then I obviously go to the third clip, make the same clip, get rid of that, and get rid of that. So now we've got our first person here. We got our first clip, second clip, third clip, and fourth clip. So then what I do is kind of drag them all down so they're just above that one. So it's nice and easy to kind of imagine how this clip is going to go. But let's say this is a bit too long. I want to splice in some third person, or first person, I should say, sorry. So I'll go to solo here, and I've just realized I've got the event marker has been added. I try to not have that in the videos. That kind of ruins the immersion a little bit. So maybe we'll just have the ending on, we'll have it ending on this, but we'll have a small section when we're in first person coming up to the door. This is really not the best scene in the world. It probably wouldn't look very good. It's a bit all over the place, but it's just so you guys can get a good example of what I'm doing here. So then I'll go to this and press this button right here, whatever it's actually called, I don't know. Ignore event grouping. And I will just split this one right here, get rid of this part of the first person and this one too, drag these down, and there we go. In one clip, and we can shorten this back as well. We got 1 shot in third person, 2 shot in third person, 3 shot in third person. We got a little bit of first person in there too, and a fourth and final shot of the third person long shot of the camera moving away from the house. And in essence, that's it. That's all I do. So every single clip that I make of a first person shot, I do that for every single one that I get. So usually my videos are made up of around, I like to number these. So this is usually somewhere in the range of 150 to 300 replay mod clips, and then maybe like 50 or so first persons. So I'll have 50 first person clips all lined up down here. Then with the 3 or 4 clips I've got synced to that first person clip above it, basically. So, but this is just a single scene, not for the whole video, but it is just this over and over and over again. That's how I make them. So let's just unmute this, and then we'll go ahead and start rendering this one out. So here we go, let's witness maybe the best thing I've ever created on this channel. Bear in mind, this is my second channel. Oh wow, can't believe after fighting 5 withers, there's the first shot cut to the second one. Walking across here. 17 elytras, we cut to the third one, sorry. Jump into first person. Fine. Wow. And then the fourth person one. And you can kind of see how seamless it is. So the bonus with doing it this way is because it's perfectly synced up, you can see as we transition from clip to clip, my guy, my little character here, is always looking in the correct direction. There's no continuity issues. Whereas if maybe you try to sync it up yourself, you might have him looking one way and then you cut and all of a sudden he's done a 180 turn. This way you can make sure it is perfectly synced up. Now, obviously there are other things I do with my video production. It's not just what I've shown you there. There's other parts of it, say we got a time-lapse or a montage with music, that's totally different to what I've just shown you, but 90% of my videos is done in the way that I've just described, which I think gives it that charm. That's what people ask about most of the time when they're curious how I film them. So I hope this video has helped you out. Thanks for coming over to the second channel. I'm maybe thinking about starting to do a few more videos like this over here, so if there's any other sort of behind the scenes videos you would like to see, let me know. I'd be interested to do some more because I am really passionate about what I do, and obviously I tend not to break the fourth wall too often in my videos, so I'm happy to do it here. So any ideas you got, let me know in the comments and I'll maybe see if we can make some more in the future. But thank you for watching, guys. Really hope this helped you out, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.